Welcome everyone, and thank you for listening in. This is the account with the news summary for day 366 of the war in Ukraine. Today we have 3 extra segments. The first segment takes a look at the visit by the Polish Prime Minister. The second segment is a quick update on the war commemoration in Kyiv. And the last segment is President Zelensky's press conference for the anniversary of the war. The rest of the updates are grouped into the usual situation inside Ukraine, Russia and Belarus, and the international developments. There has been nothing noteworthy reported out of the occupied territories today, so we will be skipping that segment. But before we start the news, the flashpoints along the front. Bakhmut. The situation north of Bakhmut is dire. Despite Ukrainian attempts to push Russian forces back, fighting is ongoing inside Berhivka and Yahidne. Some sources suggest the settlements might actually have already fallen to Russia. An operational encirclement seems imminent, as the only road left into Bakhmut is through Hromove, marked here with a blue dotted line. South of Bakhmut, Russia tried again to reach the TO-504 highway, marked with a red dotted line, but failed. To start the news segment, the updates regarding the visit by the Polish Prime Minister. The Polish Prime Minister is visiting Kyiv today to mark the 1-year anniversary of Russia's full-scale war against Ukraine. While in Kyiv, he handed over the first Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine. He was photographed together with Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal and Ukrainian Defense Minister Oleksiy Reznikov standing next to the tanks. He further announced that Poland will send an additional 60 PT-91 Twardy main battle tanks to Ukraine in the coming days. Moving on to the updates on the war commemoration. During his 1-year anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion speech, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky concluded that it had been a year of resilience, bravery, pain, hope, endurance, and unity. He further recalled the main milestones of the Russian Federation's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, thanked Ukrainian defenders and partners, and promised to do everything to liberate the temporarily occupied territories and achieve victory this year. A commemorative event for the war was held in Kyiv today. President Zelensky and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces Zaluzhny both attended. President Zelensky has decorated Ukrainian defenders with national awards and in particular the title of Hero of Ukraine. Valery Zaluzhny, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, has thanked everyone who is defending Ukraine and expressed confidence in the victory. He said, "The base of our resilience is people. People made of concrete, people made of steel. Ordinary people, ordinary heroes, among us, with us in the ranks. I thank you, I am proud of you. It is thanks to you that we have survived. Thanks to you, we will win." According to numbers released today by the Ministry of Health of Ukraine, Russia has killed 106 medical professionals over the past year. 33 of them were killed in the workplace. Next up, President Zelensky's press conference. President Zelensky held a press conference today titled February, a Year of Invincibility. During the event, he stated the following. Regarding the Chinese peace plan, President Zelensky does not consider it a proper plan, but can see some positive aspects in it. At least China is thinking of Ukraine. He would, however, like to sit down with Chinese leader Xi Jinping. The risk that the Russian Federation will invade other countries is real. Russian President Vladimir Putin needs to be presented with victories, and since there are none in Ukraine, Russia will turn its attention to other countries. Zelensky pointed to Moldova, where Russia is allegedly planning a coup d'etat. When asked if he would attend a meeting with Putin in Ankara, Turkey, he simply said, "There is no one to talk to." Zelensky also cannot promise that Crimea can be liberated in 2023. However, he expressed his hope that there will be no more war in Ukraine next year. He further mentioned that he hopes Ukraine and South Korea can further develop their relationship and that South Korea will find an opportunity to provide Ukraine with needed help. And now a look at all the minor news out of Ukraine. Yuri Inat, the spokesman of the Airforce of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, warned that Russia is likely preparing a missile attack for a different day, as an attack was expected to happen on the anniversary of the war. Serhiy Deineko, head of Ukraine's State Border Guard Service, said in an interview that Ukraine knew Russia would attack from Belarus, but did not believe in an assault from occupied Crimea. Moving on to the news updates from Russia and Belarus. According to the Defense Ministry of Belarus, the country will once again conduct combat readiness measures. Furthermore, it was stated that one of the missile units is moving towards a designated area for combat use. In its morning update, the General Staff of Ukraine reported that covert mobilization is taking place in regions of the Caucasus that are part of the Russian Federation. Russia is targeting prisons as part of its mobilization efforts. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Russia has warned the US, NATO and Ukraine against other adventurous steps in Transnistria. It threatened to respond appropriately and once again accused Ukraine of allegedly preparing provocations in the breakaway territory. Victoria Nuland, US Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs, stated in an interview with Russian news outlet TASS that the United States would be ready to negotiate with Russia only on the basis of the 10-point peace formula proposed by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. And to wrap up the news segment, the international developments. Russia appears to be in talks with Xi'an Bingo Intelligent Aviation Technology, a Chinese drone manufacturer, about the purchase of attack drones. Der Spiegel reported that Beijing and Moscow are said to be negotiating the purchase of 100 strike drones, which could be delivered as soon as April. According to US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, the Allies are preparing several motorized infantry brigades of the armed forces of Ukraine to break through the Russian defenses. He further said that the Russian Federation's war against Ukraine will end with negotiations, the beginning of which will be the withdrawal of the occupying forces. The US government announced a new $2 billion security assistance package for Ukraine under the Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative. The US will provide large quantities of ammunition for 155mm artillery and HIMARS systems, which have proven effective on the battlefield. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of China has published a 12-point peace plan proposal for ending the Russian Federation's war against Ukraine. Beijing speaks of respect for the territorial integrity of countries and calls for negotiations. In the first paragraph, China calls for respect for the sovereignty of all countries based on international law, as well as territorial integrity. Further, Beijing talks about abandoning the mentality of the Cold War because the security of countries should not be achieved thanks to others. According to Jacob Sullivan, US President Joe Biden's advisor on national security issues, China can stop at the first point of its peaceful plan for the settlement of the Russian Federation's war against Ukraine, which talks about respect for sovereignty. Sullivan further stated that the Russian occupiers have already lost the war against Ukraine and will not be able to capture Kyiv. According to him, a year after the beginning of the Great War, Ukraine has already prevented Russia from realizing its main goal, which is to seize the capital. He noted that the Russians will not be able to do so as long as Ukrainians resist and the United States supports them. Following a joint decision by Boris Pistorius, Minister of Defense of Germany, and his military advisors, Germany has decided to send 4 additional Leopard 2 A6 tanks to Ukraine. Sweden announced it is joining the International Tank Coalition and will be sending up to 10 Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine. Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson confirmed that the country will send up to 10 Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine, and also announced Sweden's contribution to the internationally coordinated supply of Hawk and Iris-T air defense systems. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs and European Integration of Moldova has responded to Russian claims that Ukraine is allegedly preparing provocations in Transnistria by reminding Russia that it is yet to withdraw its own forces from the breakaway region. And now for the Intelligence Report segment, starting as usual with the UK Ministry of Defense. Since 2014, Russia's strategic goal in Ukraine has highly likely been consistent: to control its neighbor. Over 2014 to 2021, it pursued this objective through subversion, by fomenting an undeclared war in the Donbas and by annexing Crimea. On February 24, 2022, Russia pivoted to a new approach and launched a full-scale invasion which attempted to seize the whole country and depose its government. By April 2022, Russia realized this had failed and focused on expanding and formalizing its rule over the Donbas and the south. It has made slow and extremely costly progress. In recent weeks, Russia has likely changed its approach again. Its campaign now likely primarily seeks to degrade the Ukrainian military rather than being focused on seizing substantial new territory. The Russian leadership is likely pursuing a long-term operation where they bank that Russia's advantages in population and resources will eventually exhaust Ukraine. A look at the latest assessment by the Institute for the Study of War. Due to real-life commitments and resulting time shortage, I will be reading the Institute's headlines instead of writing a summary. I apologize for that. The Kremlin appears to be setting conditions for false flag operations on the Chernihiv Oblast international border and in Moldova ahead of the one-year anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin continues to deliver boilerplate rhetoric in public addresses that offered him opportunities he did not take to shape the Russian information space ahead of the one-year anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Putin likely attempted to downplay recent surges of criticism regarding the integration of the Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republics (DNR, LNR) into the Russian armed forces. Putin seems more concerned with appealing to ultra-nationalist, pro-war ideologues and tired rhetorical gestures than with presenting any new approach to achieving the Kremlin's objectives in Ukraine. Russia's President Vladimir Putin likely continues to suffer from confirmation bias in his belief that Russia's will to fight will outlast the West's will to support Ukraine. The combination of Putin's beliefs about Russian staying power and expectations of the collapse of Western will, with a shrinking circle of advisors and the apparent unwillingness of insiders to contradict him, likely create a strong confirmation bias in Putin's observation of Western statements and outreach. Putin is likely to prioritize any indications of waning Western support or hesitancy over statements or indications of Western toughness or determination if this hypothesis is correct. Western leaders would do well to consider the likelihood that confirmation bias of this sort is shaping Putin's perceptions in their own public and private statements and actions. A Russian source attempted to preempt Western discussions about releasing classified information regarding China's considerations to provide lethal aid to Russia. Wagner Group financier Yevgeny Prigozhin announced that the Russian Ministry of Defense fulfilled Wagner Group's complete artillery ammunition request on February 23rd following immense support for Prigozhin in the Russian information space. And to wrap up the report, the evening update by the General Staff of Ukraine. The Russian Federation focuses its main efforts on conducting offensive operations in the Kupiansk, Liman, Bakhmut, Avdiivka and Shakhtarsk directions and increases the number of personnel. The enemy carried out several unsuccessful offensives in the Kupiansk and Liman directions, in particular in the areas of Serebryansk Forest and Verkhnokamianske and Rostolivka settlements of Donetsk region. In the Bakhmut direction, the enemy continues to attack the positions of our troops, launched several unsuccessful offensives near the settlements of Dubovo-Vasilivka, Berhivka, and Zalisnyanske. In the Avdiivka and Shakhtarske directions, the enemy launched offensives in the areas of Permovaiske, Nevelske, and Marinka settlements. They were unsuccessful. Occupiers imposed a 24-hour curfew in Chaplinka, Kherson region from February 23rd to 25th of this year. The reason may be the transfer of military equipment from the temporarily occupied part of the Autonomous Republic of Crimea to strengthen the defense line. In the city of Nova Kakhovka, Kherson region, the enemy is conducting a roundup of the homes of local residents. During the inspection, the registration and documents of ownership of housing are verified. In case of their absence, residents are evicted within a week, and servicemen of the Russian occupation forces are quartered there. And that wraps up today's news report. If you're interested in any of the articles I mentioned, you can find links to them in the description as usual. If you enjoyed the report and found it informative, please consider sharing it with others and giving me a like. I hope you will join me again tomorrow. Thank you for tuning in and have a great day. You were listening to The Account. Slava Ukraini.